All right, well, welcome to the Behavior Panel. This is the best of Psychopaths. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of throw it around the room and say what our favorite episode was that we did, or our favorite psychopath anyway. And in this case, my favorite one is Robert Durst. And I think the documentary they did on him was fabulous. If you haven't seen it yet, it's on HBO. Please check that out. It's called The Jinx. And it is the perfect example of a psychopath. Mark, what's your favorite?
Yeah, so I'm a massive fan of Ramirez, possibly because there's no way he's ever getting out, so he's never coming for me. There's so little chance that
Plus
guy.
He's dead.
Oh, is he really? Well, even better, even better. But what I like about him as well is just how he takes sayings of other people and puts them together into something that he hopes you'll imagine is his character. That kind of sponge. Really love that. Chase, which one do you like?
It's almost like he's a psycho quilt weaver. Like he's just weaving this quilt patchwork of other people's stuff. My favorite was Erin Caffrey. I liked her most because we got to see her go through this interview and how she responds to somebody who should be of an authority figure and trying to appeal to an authority figure. And I think it's interesting to me that she breaks all the molds that we think. We think they're super high intelligence. We think they're men. We think they're older. We think all of these things, and she breaks so many of those molds. Like we think they have to act mean and nasty, but she does the opposite, and that's her defense mechanism. So I was really fascinated with that. Greg.
Yeah, we share the same one. Erin is my favorite as well. Not for the same reasons, because I think she's Bride of Chucky is what I think when I see her. She's just got this crazy little look, and she's all locked down and really tight. And then she does that. She leaks, kill my parents. I love that thing where she's bleeding information and has no idea. And when you look at her underneath the table, she's locked down so tight, she's trying so hard, and she still bleeds information. Can't hide it. My favorite.
Awesome. So watch this and see which one's your favorite. And we'll talk to you a little bit when it's over.
Tell me how this all happened.
I met Charlie, and things were going good. My mother and father didn't really like him.
Right.
And the first time he ever mentioned, that he wanted to kill my parents was, after Christmas, that he had gave me a ring, proposed to me, and my parents, didn't want us to.
And it was a promise ring, not an engagement ring, right?
Yes,
All right, Chase, what do you got?
This is a great way to start this off. Greg picked this clip. And I think it's wonderful that we're seeing from kind of the outset of this interview that Dr. Phil's matching her behavior. He's leaned forward. His hands are under the table, just like hers are. And he doesn't ask her a question. He gives her a command. He says, tell me how this all happened.
Tell me how this all happened.
And this is something that I tend to do in an interrogation room where I'm testing the compliance status or where that person is from on a compliance standpoint. And he gets a wonderful compliance from her. And I think he's careful not to use the word but in here. So he uses the word and instead of but, which is a wonderful tool for anybody that's communicating. When she's saying kill and parents, I think she's forcing those words out. I'm sure you guys will talk about that and what that means. But I want to give you a quick fact about psychopaths. They are clinically proven not to be better at deception than the average person. They do it more often, but that doesn't make them better at it. There's 5 studies that say that they're better at verbal deception only, but once a nonverbal component is introduced or a polygraph, they do just about the same as everybody else. And you'll see where this is going here in the next few videos. Scott?
All right. Yeah, this is an excellent example of a psychopath. Everybody's always asking about him. This is a wonderful one. So, because what we're seeing is she's trying to totally control her demeanor and her delivery with everything. And she's trying to deliver and show what she thinks a normal person looks like, what that normal behavior would be. But just by watching her, we know automatically something's not right here. That little feeling you get inside in your gut, that's telling you everything. You're not quite sure what it is yet. We're going to explain it to you why you feel that way, but you know something's wrong. So that control makes her talk at a specific volume. As we go through this, her baseline is this. When she's being getting nailed for telling a lie, and she doesn't want to say what it is. She almost doesn't say it. She doesn't. She'll move her mouth, but she won't say the words out loud. She whispers them. So that goes all the way down to, it's reminiscent of being a child and getting in trouble. When you get in trouble, you get real quiet and you don't say a whole lot because you don't know what's going to happen and you don't know how much to say. And her face is expressionless. We're going to see some great examples of where she mimics what she's heard other people say and use the expressions and the fake excitement that she's seen other people use. This is perfect for that. Again, I'm going to grab some stuff out of here and use it in training as well. Greg, what do you got?
So a couple of things. Yes, psychopaths are a couple of things we know about psychopaths as well. Now I'll quote a study or a time frame. 2018, Cardiff and Swansea universities did a study, and the one thing that they found interesting is that pupil dilation, which we do when we see a good thing or when we see a dangerous thing, only occurs in psychopaths when they see good things or whatever makes them happy. When there's fear, a fear-inducing thing, no dilation. That's an interesting thing. Watch this girl's eyes throughout all this stress. Watch her pupils. I kept looking for it. Like, hey, hopefully there's some pinpointing and nope, nothing. That's number one. She's set. There are a couple things here that I'm going to point out, and one of them that I find really interesting is the smile. But she's braced. She's leaned in that chair. She's got her feet against the legs of the chair. She's got her arms between and under the table so she can move her hands without you seeing them, and she makes eye lock. We'd usually call the romancer, I'll call this the creeper. There's nothing, she's not paying positive attention to you, she's paying all attention to you, and she's focused on him like crazy. I always say the organism does what made the organism successful. This girl, this has been what she's done with her parents, what she's done with authority, the yes sir. She's doing front of the mouth talking, and I don't use this very often on here, but when people are being contrite, that front of the mouth talking, when they're angry, the back of the mouth talking, the power, listen to it. She's contrite. She's trying to make him fall for whatever it is she does. Now, I'm also going to tell you that people can rationalize all kinds of things in their head. I've talked to terrorists who rationalize what they've done, or to bad guys who rationalize what they've done because they feel like they're justified in doing it. Might be some of that going on in this girl's head. Don't know. I'm not trying to put into her head what's there. But I feel, when I'm sitting across the table from somebody like this, I feel a facade because it's locked down, it's tight, everything's gripped. Her body language is all controlled. And usually when I see that, there's a lot of something boiling inside that person I'm talking to. So what you're trying to do is find that little facade crack every now and then. And I think that smile is a crack. She's eye locked. You know what her blink rate is on my page? Her blink rate is yesterday she blinked. She hasn't blinked in this whole damn thing. The only time she blinks is for eye blocking. And very specifically, Chase, I love what you pointed out, she tells with emphasis, kill my parents. And when she does, she doesn't just do that. Her eyelids go, kill my parents.
That he wanted to kill my parents was...
Watch it. It is telling. It's powerful.
The prosecution made much of Darley's inappropriate behavior. For instance, the first policeman on the scene testified Darley didn't seem concerned about Damon.
He's got his eyes open, and he's trying to breathe. I told her that she needed to help him, but she just wouldn't help him.
That's a lie. There's no other words to use. That's a lie.
She says she comforted Damon.
I told him to hold on. I told him to be strong. And he said, okay, Mommy. He shook his head. That was the last words I ever heard him say.
The grief muscle is powerful. But we see grief when she's talking about her innocence as well. So it's an unusual place to see it. And I think that this grief innocence has been what gained her the primary three things since childhood, which is compliance, control, and social reward. We get what we want from other people. And when she says that's a lie the second time, it's rare to see it, especially in a video that's older than 5, 6 years old. There's pupil dilation. There's about 1.5 to 2 millimeters worth of pupil dilation. And this is part of our nervous system. And especially, this is some research, if you want to look this up, this is Kupkova. This is very recent, 2017 is the most recent study I've found. That pupil dilation is directly associated with high levels of stress and deception. And There's no emotion as she initially recalls the first thing she said to her child. None. And then I think she realizes when she says the second part of this, she realizes, oh, I forgot to turn that on. And I've got no research to back this up, but I've never once in my life seen a person go through an extreme emotional high of crying and feel the need to make eye contact at the same time. Because those two things don't match up. The high emotion and the drive for social connection are different, especially in this kind of environment. So I obviously didn't poll the guys here, but I would say when someone's freaking out, they don't care whether or not you're looking at them. They don't care what you think. They don't care what you feel. They're going through their own stuff. And there's no vocal tremors towards the end. When there's high emotion, there's high crying. This is another autonomic nervous system response for stress, grief, and crying. There's none. So listen to how smooth and perfect it is. Even with the tears and everything, I want you to hear how smooth it is, which is another high indicator of deception.
I told him to be strong. And he said, okay, Mommy. And he shook his head. That was the last words I ever heard him say.
And I'll go ahead and say it. I think we're dealing with a psychopath, and I'll explain more as we go along. Now, what we're seeing up there is what she thinks is the grief, emotion of grief. So that's why we see those eyebrows coming together and pushing like that, because she thinks that's what it is. She thinks it's in and up, where this should come down and make that upside down horseshoe. We don't see that. It gets close because there's a lot going on in there, but she doesn't pull that off. And I think she's looking down the barrel of the camera. She looks right down the barrel because, like you guys were saying before, she's practiced that. That's rehearsed. When psychopaths find out they're psychopaths, when they realize they're different from everyone else, a lot of times it'll go down like this. For example, and this is like the example, like a Robert Hare example. He's the Elvis of psychopathy. Now, if you're a psychopath and you didn't know it, you'd probably live, if you lived in Nashville, you'd probably live on 2nd Avenue. Down with a lot of stuff going on. It's where the bomb went off this year. And because it's always very active. Most likely you won't live in a little small town. You're going to live in a bigger town where there's action going on, because you really don't feel anything. You don't realize you don't feel anything, but the rushes you get come from adrenaline, sex, and drugs. Not that you're going to be a drug head or out being promiscuous, but you'll want something to make you feel something. And you realize that people, being around a bunch of them, will give you that feeling. Now, let's say it's Saturday night and you say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have Chinese food for supper. So you go outside and you go downstairs and you're down the stairs and you're walking down the sidewalk and you come upon a scene. You see down there's an ambulance, there's a bunch of police cars, a bunch of people standing around, and you come walking up on that and you know something important's going on. You're not sure what it is. And you come up on there and you see the mother, she's all bent down over a little child who's been run over by a car, and the child is dead. And you see the mother and you see the child laying there, you know the child's dead, and this is, you understand it's important. And then you look at the scene, you see all these people with this look on their face of concern. You don't know it's concern, you just know it's a look. And then you say to yourself, sweet and sour chicken. I'm going to get sweet and sour chicken. And you go get sweet and sour chicken. You come back and you pass that scene one more time on the way home. You eat your sweet and sour chicken. About an hour later, most of the time, you'll find that person, or they'll find themselves in the bathroom in the mirror trying to imitate the emotions they've seen on the mother's face, because they don't know what that is. They've seen other people do it, but now it's one of those things where you're in your early 20s and you go, I better check that out. Not that you have the feeling something's wrong with you. You won't have that, but you'll know you're different from everyone else. And to be able to fit in and be able to work your way through people and society and take advantage of everything, that's what you're going to have to do, is be like those people. So they'll be in there practicing, and I think that's what she's done. She's been practicing these emotions maybe since she was in her early 20s or mid 20s, and that's what we're seeing. That's why, Mark, you're right. She looks right down the barrel because she's checking herself to see how it looks and saying, yeah, well, look at this, because that's what she's doing to herself in the mirror. So I think it's just a click back to that as she's doing it to make sure it's cool. She looks over at the camera and makes sure you see that.
These things, contribute to a person, to a person's frustration and anger, and at some point in life, he explodes.
Yeah, so let me give you potentially another idea around why this distancing might be happening, because I agree there's lots of distancing talk there. So he talks about these things. He's now got some contributors to the issue, the problem, the psychopathy that happens. I went back in the interview, bits that we haven't seen there, and he's talking about abuse, poverty, drugs, some other elements as well. But he says these things contribute to a person. And when he says a person, he does an eyebrow raise, look for approval, but then he shows disdain. So it's interesting. He says, here's some things that contribute to a person, to a personality, and I want you to agree with that. At the same time, he doesn't seem to agree or like the idea of the person, a personality. And he talks about that it builds frustration and anger, and then it explodes. So you get a shattered personality. So the idea of a shattered personality is like there's lots of versions of us. There's the me when I was 14, the me when I was 4. There's the me when I talked to my mum. There's the me when I talked to my kid. It's all the same person, but there's some slight differences between us all. It's not different personalities, aspects of personality. And some people would say if those aspects aren't able to get connected with each other, they don't know each other exist, or they have fights with each other, the personality shatters. And when the personality shatters, I just don't know who I am anymore. Or I'll get with one person and I'm the completely different person than when I'm with that person there. If the facets are connected, it's a kind of a more whole person. Well, he says he exploded. He shattered. So I don't think he knows what his personality is anymore, even if he did in the first place. He doesn't have anything really solid to hang on to. And so he's finding it hard to locate himself, know who he is, and therefore he doesn't know who's meant to take responsibility for this. So at the moment he's gone, again, there's some external factors here, abuse, poverty, drugs, that caused my personality to break up. And I'm distancing myself because I don't know who's responsible. That's one idea. Now, at the same time, he's probably heard stuff like I've just told you. And he might be just regurgitating stuff like somebody like me told him in prison.
This guy's head's a drum, and whatever bounces on it comes out of it. My opinion of this guy, if I had this guy in an interrogation room, I'd treat him like a classic malignant narcissist. And I would say, wow, it's impressive that you killed that many people in this short a period of time and got away with it for a long time. And then once I got him to the point where he started smiling again, I'd say, but you're an idiot. Here's what you left behind. Bam, 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 bam. And I'd start picking on him and poking him until he just could not take it anymore. Because I think you're dead on, Mark. Somebody has told him this stuff. And what they're really good at is regurgitating what you show passion for.
Yeah, great mimics.
Yep.
Yeah. So how many times did you try calling her?
I called her 3 times, texted her about 3 times just to say, what's going on? Like because after I called her and texted her once, it's like maybe she was just busy. Like she just got back, like everybody's probably calling her from her trip. She just got back from Arizona, and I figured she was just busy. But when her friend showed up, that's what it was like. It registered like, all right, this isn't right.
I want you to pay attention to this. We'll talk about it in a second, but a lot of his deception indicators are piling up before he starts answering. So before he gets to answer, as he's realizing the nature of the question that's coming along, I think he doesn't realize that he is being judged before he starts answering. I think in his mind, the moment he starts speaking is when he needs to be on. And right here, I'm surprised Greg and Scott didn't say it. This is a textbook perfect example of fading facts, as you guys like to call it.
Yeah.
So the volume starts up here and ends out down here. So he starts the conversation and it just kind of trails off into the end. And he says, after I called and texted once with an eyebrow flash, a no head shaking, a single-sided shoulder shrug, facial touching, both shoulder shrugs, and eyes moving to that lie spot that we talked about earlier, which is 10, which is a 22 on the behavioral table of elements. And keep in mind, you just need an 11 to be judged as likely deceptive. He says, friend showed up, his eyes moved towards the front door of his house, which is over there. So this is just a physical reference. I don't think it is an eye movement whatsoever. And after his statement, if you're wanting to know when to look for blink rate for deception, it typically, about 60, 70% of the time, is after someone starts or after someone finishes a statement. They're done talking to you, and now they're really nervous about whether or not you're going to accept it or whether or not you bought it.
You know, I think this is a really good one for us to bat around. The absolutist would say he scratched his nose, he's lying. Okay, well, he touched his face, there's an adapter. Doing this, increasing sway rate. Doing this, increasing blink rate. We're looking for clusters, guys. Mm-hmm. This guy is wrapped up in clusters of behavior that indicate something in his little noggin is on fire right now. He's stressed. And that's what we're looking for. We don't know what, but now we know because we know what he did. But if we were talking to this guy, we would all be digging into him pretty hard right now.
Yeah.
I'll throw one thing in here too. When he's talking about she didn't answer my calls or texts, and that's fine, I think he is explaining character that is missing. I think he's explaining and offering some self-control and nice guymanship that is not there.
That's good.
Good one.
Okay.
All
right.
You have now entered a very rare group of people in this country. You're in the ranks of Charlie Manson, Ted Bundy. You claim you didn't commit these murders, but you're right in there now as far as everybody else is concerned.
Serial killers do on a small scale what governments do on a large one. They are a product of the times, and these are bloodthirsty times. Even psychopaths have emotions if you dig deep enough, but then again, maybe they don't.
Do you have emotions, Richard?
No comment.
Tell me what kind of emotions you got going through you right now.
I'll tell you what, I gave up on love and happiness a long time ago.
Why?
I don't care to explain that. Let the quote stand for itself.
Scott, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree 100%. And the reporter, he takes the tack he should take on this from the beginning. He puts him on a pedestal and says, wow, you're like all these people you used to read about as a kid. You're one of them now. And that's when he straightens up and he's coming forward and gets that head back a little bit. He's like, yeah, man, that's who I am. Because he's feeding that ego. And that's when they start lighting up. Now, if he'd shut up for a while, he'd gotten a lot more instead of breaking in so much. But he gets excited, and you can hear him reading these things. We can see him reading them as well, looking down and then spouting them off. But you can hear the way he words things, like you were saying, Chase. You can tell that's not him. Those aren't his words. That's not natural for him. That's why it's so choppy and broken. And he's adding those what he thinks are the proper facial expressions and emotions to show. And he starts wiggling around. He's looking around, moving around a whole lot. Every time he does that, that's what he starts doing. Let's talk about his eyes for just a minute, because we were talking about the psychopathic stare earlier. What happens in this case is, and he's got this down, but he can't help it because that's what these things do, is when if I said to you, stare at me like a psychopath, you might squint your eyes and try to look mean. When they do it, it's almost the same way as when you see anger. If somebody squints their eyes at you, and you're not thinking, is this guy going to come, if you're in an interrogation thing, this guy's not going to come over the table because he's doing this. But once they squint their eyes and then you see the whites of their eyes under there, that's the look you're looking for. And that's what we see here. His eyes are squinted, but they're still getting wide. There's a lot going on in there. He's been triggered. So there's a lot, something's been fired off in there that makes that happen. And you see that as well throughout this interview. Sometimes it's normal. We'll see one where he looks almost like a normal person. But you see just little flicks of it popping up now and then, which we'll point out as we go along. But I think that's an important thing to pay attention to, is the psychopathic stare. And he looks right at him, and the blinking is usually next to nothing as they do that. In a bar, in a public setting, you've always heard about the I saw this guy, the girls will say, and I looked at him from across the room, and I felt like we had a connection, because every time they look up, he's looking at him. They don't understand that if you keep looking at somebody, that's weird and that's strange. They don't get that same feeling we get. With you guys, if we were sitting somewhere and I kept looking at you, that would be weird. If I didn't look away or talk about, do something, it would be odd. But they don't feel that feeling. They have no ability to feel feelings because their amygdala are either gone, they're not there, they're damaged, or there's just something wrong with them. Or there's just nothing in there.
Yeah, so absolutely agree with everything there. He smiles there, true Duchenne smile at the status raise that he gets. The interviewer also uses Charlie Manson instead of Charles Manson. I think he's trying to add some kind of friendly association there. Charlie, my mate, you're like Charlie, my mate, aren't you?
You're in the ranks of Charlie Manson.
So, bit odd there, trying to win friendship there. But I think that's what he's trying to do. I think we see Duper's delight as well on, do you have emotions? Well, every psychopath has feelings if you dig a bit into it, and then again, maybe not. I think he quite enjoys that play that he does there and enjoys what he thinks is a brilliant dupe. It's not that brilliant, but he likes it. And we see the asymmetry in the face there of Duper's delight, one side of the face doing something very different from the other. It's very prolonged in this case. Often Duper's delight is very, very quick. It's super prolonged because he doesn't have to hide anything at this point. What's he got to hide? Other than he's not saying specific things because of his appeal, essentially. Now, what's interesting for me, I think most of all, is this idea of he gave up love and happiness a long time ago. He's already painting himself as a victim. He's already started this process of saying, I've given up on love, I've lost that, painting himself as a victim of circumstances. And we get this heavy breath, this heavy breathe out, and we'll see it later on as well, when he talks about government.
Serial killers do on a small scale what governments do on a large one. They are a product of the times, and these are bloodthirsty times.
So he's already setting up this idea of external factors being responsible. But his idea up front is that these murders are not his responsibility. They're already the responsibility of some external factor. So keep that in mind as we go along. And he's painting himself as the victim here and the victim of external factors.
Yeah. And I agree with you guys, especially you, Mark, that one of the key things we see running through this is it's not his fault. And with a psychopath or a narcissist, a hardcore clinical narcissist, it's never their fault either. Never. What they're trying to do is show you as they go through this. He's trying to be what you are. That's why you heard matching and mirroring. As you see that happening, he tries to do that from the word go and tries to take on your personality type. Doesn't have one, so it's easier. He's practiced at it. Can do that fairly easily when meeting people and those types of things. One thing a phrase I came up with was, when you're dealing with psychopaths, you're not looking for a sheep in wolf's clothing. You're looking for a sheep in your clothing.
It's a great.
And that's really important to pay attention to, because they're trying to be like you. And when they're trying to be like you too much, say if you see that stare from too far apart and they show up and you feel all of a sudden you feel like you've met this kindred spirit and everything's cool, heads up. Not all the time, every time, but quite often that could be a real problem for you.
So if we were to do a similar investigation in your background, is there anything you can think of that anybody may have misinterpreted, or anything in your history that somebody might say Russell Williams
Absolutely
did this?
No.
Okay.
Be very boring.
What's that?
It'll be very boring.
All right, because essentially that's what I'm looking at. Is it? You seem like a very intelligent person, and I think you can see how a surprise like that would certainly set off some alarm bells in an investigation, right?
Yeah, so guys, I'm going to try not to be long-winded here, because I'm about to go into the mechanics of interrogation. We're going to talk about how this works, how an interrogation actually works. So we talked about approaches. Approaches are these levers, these psychological ploys we use to get in someone's head. And those include things like, I'll list a handful of them and then we'll go from there. Direct. People ask a question, you answer it or you don't. Incentive. I offer you something, you give it to me. People have given me information for cookie or ice cream before. It just works that way. Sometimes it's alcohol or something else. Emotional. That means love or hate of something. Fear. Up and down. And that can be harsh or it can be aggressive. Pride and ego. Up or down. Let me see if I can even repetition, establish ID. All of these things come together, and then futility, rapid fire, all silence. All of those are approaches and ways to get you to talk. What you're seeing here is a very artful beginning. Now, if he stumbled into it, fantastic, but I don't think so. I think what he's doing with this pseudo bait question is he is establishing we know all, like that. He said, hey, you had this security interview. Is there anything in there people might misunderstand? That is a shot across the bow for, hey, I've seen your security interview. I know a lot of stuff about you that is not public knowledge. It's already starting down that path, and it's very subtle, but it's the first step. Now imagine I start bringing in the mechanics of this, and what he's after is a reaction. Does he get a reaction? Go back and watch the video and turn the sound off. Watch him, because he starts with that blink right up. His legs are crossed. He throws that forehead up as he trying to, he says this whole thing about it'd be very boring, and his legs open. His legs blossom wide open in kind of a cocky leg position after. Does it mean he's being cocky? It means something changed. Ding, ding, ding. What an orchestration is, we talk about these 14 approaches. None of them work in a vacuum. The only one that works in a vacuum is direct. Hey, Chase, did you do this? Well, yeah, Greg, I did it. That's a direct. But the rest of them, we feather them together and we create this beautiful story that allows you to be the hero. If the hero is telling us where the body is or something else, all these approaches go together. Here comes this. There's an incentive, there's a carrot dangle going on right now while he's talking.
There were hard drives in the computers, and you took those out when you left to come up here. Why did you do that?
She took hard drives out of my truck that were my personal drives that I had taken.
So you drive around with hard drives?
Yes, sir. Now, when Houston PD contacted me, I told them that I took the drives.
Well, you said you would show them to me when
yes,
I came
I
here
have
today.
the drives.
Do you have them here?
Yes.
Can we look at them?
Yeah, I'll bring them to you. One second. No, I don't have them because he still has them. He's still copying them.
Okay, well, you can come back.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought he brought them back, but he didn't. I thought I did, but I forgot.
Okay, so you don't have them?
I don't have them, but
so where are they?
They're at a friend's house here in Odessa. He's an IT professional, and he's the one extracting the information for me so that the drives remain in the state that they should be so that the police can investigate.
You said you were going to show those to us, and you got up and walked to the door and then said, oh, that's right, they're not here. But not 15 minutes before we got here, you told my producer they weren't here. You already knew they weren't here when you got up to go get them.
My mind is scatterbrained right now. I mean, I forgot.
All right, I'm going to go first on this one. This is so awesome. We see that the mouth movement is becoming more predominant in this situation. His tongue's coming out and pulling that lip in. It's a little bigger than it was the last time. It's a lot bigger actually than it was the last time, and that lets us know there's an issue there for him. There's an issue here. His answer is prepared. And he's running it as Dr. Phil finishes that question. And as he starts delivering it, we can see, he has the structure down, but he doesn't have the specific details with it. And here's how we know, because he says now.
Now, when Houston PD contacted me.
And then he starts giving his story. It's like saying, all right, here we go. And then you give your story.
Now, when Houston PD contacted me, I told them that I took the drives.
As he's explaining all this, he locks eyes with Dr. Phil because he's a little bit, at that point, he's on notice for what's going on. We're all going to cover a lot of this stuff, but I'll get down to the part where he goes to get the hard drives. This is my favorite part. It's the worst acting. It's worse than almost as bad as that girl we had in the last video.
We look at him?
Yeah, I'll bring it to you. One second. No, I don't have them because he still has them.
He looks like a fourth grader in the play and he's playing a cowboy, and he walks up like he's walking up going, well, my name is Cowboy Bob, because he starts marching like that. Then he stops, this fake stop. But the thing that was the coolest thing in here, the most awesome thing you did, Dr. Phil, was say, you can come back.
Okay, well, you can come back.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought he brought them back, but he didn't.
In his own place, in his parents' home. You took the leading role in his parents' house.
Okay, well, you can come back.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought he brought them back, but he didn't.
You're telling him what he can do in his parents' house, up over his father at that point. Man, I just can't get past that. That was a great move. That was a great move.
Okay, well, you can come back.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought he brought them back, but he didn't.
If I had done this to my children, I would be the first person to stand up and say, oh my God, I need help. What have I done? You know, a mother couldn't live with herself.
But now, Darlie, they're saying that you could live with it because you're a psychopath and that you could kill and not have a conscience
Sure, that
about
fits
it.
their theory.
This is real Darla starting to come out. Darlie, this is real Darlie starting to come out. You start to see that she gets a little pissed. Narcissists get pissed when you point out flaws and that kind of thing. And so we all know that all psychopaths are narcissists. Doesn't mean that all narcissists are psychopaths. And Chase, I know you were going to jump on this, and all of us are going to mention it. I call this a self-stated punishment judgment. You know, I would need help. Well, if I was saying that, I'd say I'd need my ass killed or beaten with an axe handle, whatever, right? I wouldn't say I need help. Maybe that is a cry for help. Who knows? But certainly, anybody who killed your children, you don't think they need help. You think they need gone. Yeah. Even the kindest of people are going to say they need to be gone. She eye blocks when she's saying that. If you notice, she looks away. And her pupils, again, these pupils are moving constantly on her. And the last one I will go with is when she says, sure, that fits their narrative or what they want to believe or whatever she says in those exact words. That's her coming out. That's her raising her claws and she's getting ready to say something. I would have leaned over and said, everybody thinks that you did it. And in the interrogation room, she would get pissed off and I'd say, everybody said you're a psychopath. And you know how we know? And I'd start pointing out how we know she's a psychopath. And then you would see the mask move. And then you get to see anger and all that stuff that comes with it because now the organism is not being successful. And like I say, whatever works, works, and you keep doing it. When it stops working, you always say the slip of the mask, Chase, when all those subroutines they have that worked don't work, then the things that are instinctive come to the surface. It's why Chase and I spend our lives learning where to put your fingers and not thinking about that when the time comes. You know, when you're in a military unit, the best thing I ever learned from SEALs that I take into business meetings every day is it's not how you shoot, it's if you shoot. Don't spend time thinking about how you shoot. Everything needs to be muscle memory. And every one of us as successful organisms has a lot of subroutines and things we're walking around using every day. When we get out of that thinking brain, we get out of that behavior pattern that's normal, and that cat brain comes up, all that other stuff comes out. And that's where we get them, is we push them to the point that all that other stuff comes out. Right here, you're seeing just a sliver of that, I think.
You weren't in that house when they set it on fire, right? You were in the car waiting for them to come back. And they said when you were pulling away that you said, holy, that was awesome.
Anybody say anything in the car after y'all left the house? What? Erin said, holy, that was awesome.
Did you say that? Did you say I'm free?
No, sir.
Charles Wade said you were happier than a kid at Christmas at that point. In your young brain at the time, was it a victory for you? They were gone and you were safe?
No.
They have said independently that you said you wanted your little brothers killed because they picked on you and that you didn't want them in foster care. And isn't that the truth? You didn't say that. You didn't want them dead. Wasn't it your idea to kill your parents?
I don't have a lot here. Her only concern, you can see that forehead is wrinkling. I don't know if the forehead's wrinkling out of lack of understanding, the forehead's wrinkling out of some kind of concern. If it's concern, it's only concern for her situation that she is now busted. That's it. You see her get kind of small, her forehead wrinkle up. When she said no to now, she's been pretty emphatic. And here, no. She does your fading facts. Scott, remember, bingo. She does your fading facts here. And this is about her, not about the other. When she does the no, she does a close hit. When she shook her head before, it was this. So if you pay attention to that, and then she goes into the bobblehead a little bit. You know, her head moves in a way that means yes or no or whatever. And that, I think, is she's trying to figure out what to do. I think her circuits are getting a little overheated here. If you hear her talking in the front of her mouth and then suddenly he attacks and she drops back and gets guttural and barely says anything. I think you're seeing that she realizes that what has been successful for the organism isn't working for the organism, and hasn't to now, because it didn't work and she's in prison, but it's not working with him. And I think she probably, in talking to men in authority, has used that technique before and it's not working, and suddenly we're seeing a different her. That's what I got. Scott, what do you got?
All right. When you first start observing someone in your situation, be it an interrogation, be it somebody you've just met, whatever it is, you might be on the bus or the subway watching people, or at the mall or something. What you're trying to figure out is what their body language is trying to tell you. What's really happening with that person, especially if it's under a situation where you're asking them questions about, and you may not be pointing your finger at them, but you're asking them questions about what happened. You're looking for what their body language is trying to tell you, and here is a perfect example of what to be looking for here. Again, the more dangerous the question is to her, the quieter she gets and the smaller she gets and the less movement she makes. And we see her feigning this sadness and concern, I believe. I don't think it's real at all. And when he says, wasn't it your idea to kill your parents? Her head just doesn't shake. No, it's wobbling around like that because it's trying to say yes, because obviously she knows that it was her idea. So again, going back to what is the body language trying to tell you as you observe this person? You need to watch everything going on and take the situation into context as well. In this situation, what's happening is perfect for it, because we're seeing her body trying to tell us yes when she's saying no. And she wants to say no so bad, she can't even, she wants to deny this so bad, she's whispering, she can't even speak.
Wasn't it your idea to kill your parents?
So again, the more dangerous the questions are to her, the more she shuts down, the less she puts out, and the smaller she becomes.
My last question, if you have any though, so feel free to step in. My last question is, if your wife can see this, if she can watch these, what would you like to tell your wife and your kids?
Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back. Like, if somebody has her, just please bring her back. I need to see everybody. I need to see everybody again. This house is not complete without anybody here. Please bring her back.
That's it. I can take that mic off you.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
Just in the prep, we talked about how he's more deceptive in preparation phase. He has object insertion, hygienic gesture, blink rate up to 69. Before he even answers his question, his score is a 12. Interesting. He has a hard eye block as he's saying, I need to see everybody.
I need to see everybody. I need to see everybody again.
Because I think he's envisioning seeing them where they are at that time, in that moment. Just my opinion. His repetition is unconscious, and he's trying to reaffirm that he means it. So people will typically unconsciously repeat a phrase to reaffirm to themselves that they mean that phrase. And when he says anybody, please call home, there's nothing there.
This house is not complete without anybody here.
He's just saying anybody who has her. Not like, hey, you guys, please call me, send me a text message, just reached out, just please let me know you're safe. Let me know the girls are safe. And it's just this is incredible. And it finishes up with some hardcore lip retraction at the end there, which we all saw. And anything going, just as a quick lesson for the panelists, something passes the barrier of the teeth, most of the time, that means it is a need for reassurance.
All right. When he says wife, that's when the stress begins to build again, because that's when he starts going back and forth. And then, but when he says, if you're out there, come back. Come on, man. When he asks this, when he's every person you see, that if I said to you, let me pose this question to the person watching. If I were to ask you this, show me the face you'd make and the expressions you'd make if you're asking someone to return your kidnapped husband, your kidnapped wife, your kidnapped child. They would say this. Please, their eyebrows would go up and say, please bring my child back. I'm hoping you'll do whatever it is. And that's what they would say. In reality, those people that do that are the ones that don't have those, that don't know that emotion either. That's why their eyebrows go up. What they would do is come down and say, please bring my child back. They're making a command to them on the way out. Please bring my child back. And you would see this in here, like I've got there. You'd see that brow come together there, knitting of the brow. You don't see any movement up there in this guy at all. Again, when something which is an emotional situation of the utmost emotions should be coming out here, you don't even see eyebrow movement. We got nothing on this guy. You know, what would you say, you know, to have him come back, tell the person to have him come back? Well, it just talks like a robot. Everything's just straight. But remember that woman who put her kids in the van and then ran it off into the lake and said, "Oh, somebody killed my, carjacked me at the red light." What was her name? Does anyone remember?
Susan something, right? South Carolina. I think it was Susan Harris. I can't remember. Yeah.
That might be right. So if you watch that thing where she's asking the guy to bring her kids back, she's doing this. Her eyebrows are up. Everybody in her family, their eyebrows are down like this because they're trying to say, they're thinking about what they would see and what she would say. You can see that. That's one of the first cues or tips that made those police officers, the detectives, go, "Hey man, something's up over here." You know, I knew it. I told you, because she's not doing this. She's doing this. I just want to, and they use words like "I just want," and "I just," and "we just," but they should be down, not up like that. So this is just a lame attempt at pretending to ask whoever it is that might have his kids and his wife, his pregnant wife, as a matter of fact, to bring him back. So it's just lame at that point.
The thing is, if you're watching interviews like this and you see them go on, you know, be really careful, because you can't tell from any one little moment if somebody's a perpetrator or lying. But hopefully we've shown you some of the signals that you can look out for that might lead you closer to the truth of what's really going on here. So watch out for them.
I agree. Yeah.
Look for clusters. Look for all this to change. Look for deviation around certain kinds of story. And hopefully, if the person's a criminal and they're as stupid as he is, and they'll stand up and give you all the signals when they're telling the truth, so you can tell when they're not. When he's using facts and using his hands and open, to your point, Chase, I love that. Open and closed. He's open when he's giving facts that you know are true. Those are control questions in interrogation. And then when he goes to things that you don't know about, he closes up and does the sway thing. So he gives us a baseline. It's a great thing.
Yeah. And as we went through here, you saw from video 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we saw these things happen over and over and over. And we could tell when he was being honest and when he was being deceptive. That shows you there are no absolutes. You can't just say because he's swaying, that means he's lying. You can't say because he's doing this with his mouth, that's not a deception or a cue for deception. None of these things in and of themselves by themselves mean squat. But when you start putting them together and you remember what happened, what he used to do in the older videos, it's coming up and he's still doing it, that's how you put these things together. So when someone tells you every time you see this, it means they're being deceptive. No, that's not what it is.
Russell, you know there's only one option. What other option is there?
What's the option?
Well, I don't think you want the cold-blooded psychopath option. I might be wrong. Okay? Because don't get me wrong, I've met guys who actually kind of enjoyed the notoriety, got off on it. Got off on having that label. Bernardo being one of them. I don't see that in you. If I saw that in you, I wouldn't be back in here talking to you, quite frankly. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you got me fooled. I don't know. This is over. And it can have a bad ending where Jessica's parents continue to wonder where her daughter's lying. And I don't know. I mean, obviously, there's a huge search still underway, and it'll continue. It'll continue until her body's found. That might even happen tonight, for all I know. Once that happens, then I don't know what other cards you would have to play. What are we going to do? Russell, what are we going to do?
Call me Russ, please.
Okay. What are we going to do, Russ? Is Jessica somewhere we can find her easily? Like, is this something where I can make a call and tell somebody to go to a location and they're going to find her, or is this something where we have to go and take a walk?
Yeah, lovely. So remember, right at the start, I was saying about there's this power play going on, and just think about Williams as he walked in. Cast your mind back to that character who walked in, and now who have we got? And how quickly that happened. I think we're at like 3.5 hours here, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but maybe 3.5 hours.
We've been going about 3.
Not our show, but
yeah.
Although we may be, I don't know. You tell me. But in terms of the interview here, the interrogation, it's about 3.5 hours down the line, and we talked about this the DC here is going to build this idea of futility. Well, he builds it to the point where he can be totally overt about that, and he says, there is only one option. Now, what better sentence describes futility? There is only one option. Yeah. And then, but he's not finished, because he's got a nice little card up his sleeve there where he plays Bernardo. So for anybody who doesn't know, Bernardo is a legendary serial killer in Canada, actually just from up the road in Scarborough, not far off Trenton, okay? And he, the DS here kind of assigns some kind of knowledge to Bernardo. Everybody knows Bernardo, but he kind of ascribes some kind of connection with him as well. So there is that moment of, hey, if we want to join together and be like a Bernardo, we can do that, because like I've done a Bernardo before. So if you want to go down Bernardo, I'm good. Let's do that. If you want to go down another route of not being that character, hey, I'm good for that as well. I'm with you all the way. But ultimately he goes, but regardless of where it's going, this is over.
This is over.
Now, again, just hits the futility there. Again, we get a lot of sighs from Williams, a lot of suspended breathing as well. So I don't think his breathing quite knows what to do at this point. I don't think his mind quite knows where to go on this. And so we get that silence, and we get, hey, what are we going to do? And he's got nothing.
What are we going to do?
He's got nothing, which again causes us to understand that he's now open to any offer. He's done. Now, if he'd have gone down the route of what do I want to do? I want a lawyer now. That would be a whole different thing. But he hasn't even got that. So he can lay down the idea of, look, where are the bodies? It leads into, let's get a map. You know, we're going to walk out, we're going to walk around, you're going to point to it on the map. There's that you can watch more of this yourselves and see where this leads. But ultimately what we're saying here is it's at this point where it is over for him, because he's been boxed in, the lid is down, it's futile, and he's now not in control of this at all. And what a brilliant image of who you had walking in, smiling at the camera at the start, and who you have right now.
Let's fast forward to that night. How does this go down on the night that it happened?
We had talked at school that morning, and he said, you know, just let's kill your parents. We'll, you know, run away to Maine together, and everything will be okay. I'll call my friend, and I'll come pick you up at 12. And that night around 11:45, I knew he was out there, so I made a phone call. I said, well, where are you at? And he said, well, hurry up and get out here, and hung up. So I walked out the house and picked up my little dog, Buddy, and was petting him all the way to the end of the driveway. Before I knew it, there was a car that came, and it was Bobby and Charles.
So you're outside, and he says, I'm here to kill your parents, so what happened?
I go to get in the car, you know, have no shoes on, no nothing, and he's griping at me for not having, you know, being ready, you know, and not having my bags or anything. Then we drive down to like this rundown church. We were trying to get out of it. Oh, we'll just run away. But, you know, they kept egging me on about, you know, and I just guess it was like feeding into it.
So did you finally say, okay?
Yes, sir.
You finally said, okay, go kill my parents, my mother and my father. The woman that brought me into the world, people that have fed me and clothed me and housed me and loved me every day of my life, sure, go kill them.
Yes, sir.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
So my notes right here say, with all the emotion of a snake, you're talking about this whole thing that is getting your parents killed. Typically, we associate what's going to happen when you're talking about the act of having your parents killed with shame. And if you go look today and you try to study shame, there's no universal single set of things that people will agree are indicators of shame. But one of the things that we do know is typically people break eye contact. They will try to hide something. They may show embarrassment or sadness or a combination of other emotions. Usually one of my great indicators in pre-confession is chin protecting the throat, because that is when people start to show shame. We don't see any of that. Her chin is up. The only shame I see in her is disappointing Dr. Phil at one point here. That's a really creepy place for that disappointment to be. But you can see it, kind of that drop to the sides of her mouth, and that when she realizes that he's judging her because. Walk through, she's doing that romance, her eyes are riveted. She doesn't break eye contact. There's a lot of her talking with her chin up and her eyes locked, pulled down corners of her mouth. But when she starts to tell the story, interestingly, she's storytelling about being griped at and those pieces. But when it comes to the pertinent stuff about deciding whether somebody got killed or not, the narration kind of turns to just a bunch of stuff. Mark, you'll call it probably word salad, but it's stammering and stattering. There's not a subject or an object. There's just stuff. Or if you don't know what subject and object mean, there's not a doer or a done to. There's just a lot of talking. And we can't really tell exactly what's going on. Then she starts the blame sharing of using the pronoun they instead of I. And she starts to try to answer one of his questions, but when he starts stepping on her about her mother and killing her family, she defers and backs up. I wonder what she was going to say. It wouldn't have been brilliant, guarantee you. But there's no remorse whatsoever here, regardless of whether she has emotion or not. And she does show an indicator that she doesn't like disappointing him, but she certainly shows no emotion about this whole getting her there piece.
Came in. Would you read me the address on this envelope?
Robert Durst, floor 24, 67 Wall Street, New York, 10005.
And who you sent it to?
Susan Berman, 1527 Benedict Canyon, Beverly Hills, California. Beverly spelled wrong, California 90210. Which is the zip code that you want in Beverly Hills, but you just didn't want Susie's neighborhood.
So obviously I want to ask you about the cadaver note, the famous cadaver note. Can you read me the spelling of Beverly Hills?
Police, 1527 Benedict Canyon, cadaver. Same misspelling.
So Beverly is spelled the same way on this and the same way on this.
Same misspelling.
What does that say to you?
Well, I mean, the writing looks similar and the spelling is the same, so I can see the conclusion the cops would draw, or the writing exemplar person would conclude they were both written by the same person.
Yeah, that's some odd behavior. Well, okay, I'll go first on this one. All his smooth and easy fluid movements have disappeared. His tick rate's going up a little bit. He gets quieter. His voice goes down just a little bit. And lots of head movement. And that indicates anxiety as well. And then, of course, like we're all laughing at, we see his gastric irritation grows. And that happens when you get bad news or your anxiety goes through the roof. That's, again, he's the master of in one way, of masking the stress he's going through if he didn't have the tics. But at the same time, on the inside, he's falling apart. His guts are just churning because he knows what's on the way and he's got to defend that. There's no way out of this. He can't excuse himself out of it. There's no way out of it. He's got to take this one head on.
To add to this, I think we're seeing an understanding and an awareness of what we might be thinking, and an agreement and an alignment with that. I can totally understand how somebody might come to that conclusion. This facial covering that we see is very unusual for humans in normal conversation, but in particular for him. And the burping that we're seeing here is called psychogenic belching or supragastric belching. And this has a mental origin as opposed to a physical origin, and it is directly associated with acute stress or acute anxiety. If you want to look this up, the research on this, or some that I would recommend, is from Dr. Pamela Rutledge. She's the director of psychology research in Newport Beach, media psychology research. So all of this stuff spikes with the rapid acute onset of anxiety or stress, and I think that's exactly what we're seeing here. I have very rarely seen videos of psychogenic belching in my career. I've read about it. This is a fantastic example that I will now add to my training library. Greg?
Yeah, so he starts off in this whole thing showing real interest, to your point, Mark, but he does it differently. When he was looking at pictures of himself, his head is down, the top of his head is exposed. That is the most accommodating move a human being can do. Think of Asian cultures where a bow is a greeting, and we show our empty hands. Asians show the top of their head. Those are submissive, giving your life to another person. He doesn't do that. Watch him. He leans in, but his head is this way. When he leans in, his head never bows so that you can see the top of his head, different from the first video, because he recognizes this as a threat. I'm also going to tell you, I notice his blink rate goes through the roof for the first time. Really, his blink rate is up. I think that whole gut thing, maybe it's evolutionarily, if we do that, people leave us alone. Who knows? Something in there causes him to do this burping thing, this belching thing. I think you're right, Chase. It's probably not under his control. The full-on face barrier, see no evil. I mean, that's the see no evil move, right? Nobody does that. I've rarely seen that in my life, and I've seen a lot of people get in trouble. When he gets to the point that he is doing this, the reason he's showing this fight or flight is he's not a guy who is externally stimulated to the point of real fight or flight. It's internal. He has to internalize it and feel the threat and know it's there before he responds. We know a group of people who do that. They have to have that fight or flight. And he probably fits in your favorite group, I would say, Scott, before I go much further. But then as you watch him, he gets to processor overload, I think is why he covers his face. He just can't take any more input because now he's starting to realize. Then when his hands come down, he does that bitter taste thing and his lips go to resolution. That's it. Resignation. I'm done. And I know what you're thinking. I think that's where the fight or flight comes from, and I think we're seeing a very different approach than we would from other people. Scott, to your point as well, his head's jerking and moving. I think we got this guy on the ropes now.
The other three say they were trying to get you to run away, but that you emphatically insisted that your family be killed. That's what they all say. Isn't that the truth?
All right, I'll go first on this one. This is pretty scary. I mean, the music behind it's pretty scary. But when you look at this girl and she looks up that slowly like that, holy smokes. And that's what I'm talking about. Where it looks like a robot. It looks like almost when you see someone where they run video backwards, is somebody who's looking down at, it looks like they're looking up because they run the backwards, forwards, or however you say it correctly. We're seeing a little micro expression here too. I think she's trying to hold back. I think what we're seeing is not contempt, but I think she's trying to hold back a smile. So I think she's subconsciously pushing that, maybe not subconsciously. I think she's trying to push her mouth down so she doesn't smile. This is creepy stuff here. And those eyes, those blinks are real slow. This is what I'm talking about. Something's not right in there. Something's not firing correctly or fully with her. And I think it shows, it matches her intellect. I think at this point, because I don't think it's all running shiny and everything as well. So I think there's not a whole lot to say from my perspective on that, except for I think she's trying to hide a smile in there. We'll see that a couple other times too. All right, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, I think this girl is a ball of anger, a real ball of anger that's just been contained, and that's the relationship she has with the organism, whether it's her parents or school or whatever. I'll bet when she's with her friends, she's chatty Cathy. She's one of those kind of folks. I think she's a lot more animated than we see here. I think this is the organism has learned how to deal with authority or whatever authority is, and she's balled up in there. And that crack, I think what you're seeing, Scott, is a crack in that. Yeah, I mean, that anger is I think that's the emotion she has, is anger. That's what I sense in her. And it's just sense. I see little forehead involvement, her eyes closed when he says that. It's what they all say. She does a close and she doesn't do much of that. I see, I've interrogated people like this before, and they seem calm until you touch the right button. And then the next thing you know, you're defending yourself because they come across the table, they come unbuckled. I don't think this girl, I think her whole life, she's that tall. I think her whole life, she's probably not been that violent person, and she found a way to be that violent person. So that's what I see. But I'm looking, is when he's talking to her and he's looking down at the notes, watch her. She focuses on that. She's focused on the notes. The notes are the bad guy, not him. She's doing that. She doesn't even say anything this time. She does that front of mouth talking, trying to assuage him or calm him down so he doesn't come after her. I just think she's a ball of horrible stuff inside there. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, Greg, I totally agree with you. I think we're going to see some of this later, but what I think we're seeing here is that she's learned to use power by proxy over the course of her life. And I think the shift in Phil's demeanor here to become more paternal, more serious, finger down on the table, has caused some of this regression and this kind of upward eyebrow movement, this innocent voice, innocent appearance is literally what kept her safe probably growing up, and literally what she used to wield her power growing up. And I teach 4 laws of human behavior. The number 4 law of my 4 laws is that every adult is a product of childhood suffering and reward. So she used that behavior to get out of suffering and to gain some kind of reward in her family life and her social life. And I think this is as good as it gets. This is an amazing clip that, Scott, I was going to go into that stare, and you described it a lot better than I probably could have. But keep in mind, there's no positive denial when he's asking the question. And I think Phil was a little bit to do with this regression, but we see the beginnings of another hallmark psychopathy trait here, and this is in the official book, is called PIM, or positive image management. And this positive image management, she doesn't care about committing the crime. She wants you to know that it was someone else's idea. And she's still a good person. She's the type of person who will forget her shoes, but not her little dog. And she's going to pet the dog the whole time on the way out. So this is positive image management is what we're seeing here.
If you know more about this than you're saying, if you are involved with something that's happened to her, if you lost your temper and choked her too far or something bad happened, if you are involved in her death in some way, It is a tremendous gift to your son to tell me now when I can help you and I can help him.
Like I said,
because nobody ever gets away with this.
No, like I said, she walked all over me. She just owned me. I didn't hurt her at all.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
So really easy to tell that you're inside his brain case now. You're inside his head, and the only thing that matters to him right now is what's going on right in that room. And that didn't start off being the case. He was in control. He thought he had absolute control, but now you're inside his head, and the only thing going on is that little dance. You can see the sorrow in his brows as his brows are pulled down. You can see that he's come to realization that I don't know that his sorrow is about her. I think the realization is that, this is over. Yeah. I'm done. You can see it coming very clearly. Both eyes are down. One is down further than the other. His chin is down. Now, remember, we said his baseline is his chin's up because he's doing that arrogant look down his nose at you. That's down for him. And lots of reasons people could do that. Some people because they have a dewlap kind of thing, cover their chin or they hold their head up. Other reasons that people just get in that habit of raising their head. His chin is down now, and that's throat protection. We always associate throat protection with pre-confession. They're right on the edge. All you got to do is reach out and touch him. You've already gotten him. You already got him there. He says we, and he does a long sentence before he says, no, I basically didn't do it. And then he comes out, and I think what he's trying to say to you without losing face is she walked all over me. He's admitting all the stuff that you said, and that is, to me, just stepping right into pre-confession. And then when he says that about her, his head's back up. It's interesting. He's back to who he is. He's saying she did mistreat me and.
Like I said, she walked all over me. She just owned me. I didn't hurt her at all.
But you can see all that sorrow, and I think he's just right on the edge of falling off the cliff there. Chase, what do you got?
I absolutely agree with you. And he's still faced through all these potential guilt questions that Dr. Phil's asking, which means an innocent person not likely to do that. They're going to start shaking their head from the beginning. If they're not saying anything or interrupting the interrogator, they're going to start shaking their head, or they'll do what's called pre-denial behaviors. And none of that is there. So that's a humongous red flag. There's a smirk here with more duping delight at just getting away with this when he says, oh, no. And then you see a little smirk. He does, Greg, you were talking about his chin being down with this pre-confession. He does lift it up once to talk about something that he's proud of. And I think this is the carefully crafted storyline of she owned me, because we hear him say this a couple of times. And I think he's proud of that. But what we don't see here is a denial. We don't see a strong, confident denial of commission. And right at the end, we see something very telltale that we all learn in interrogation school, kind of on day one, which is called severity softening. So instead of saying steal, someone might say take. Instead of saying rape, someone might say interfere with or touch. And instead of saying kill, you might hear somebody say the word hurt. And we hear that word come out here. So we see the severity softening here, which is another very large red flag.
I guess I'm searching for a way, among other things, to understand how
two people could misspell Beverly.
I'm searching for a way to figure out how you didn't write the cadaver note, because it's so similar.
Well, what I see as the similarity is really the misspelling in the Beverly. Other than that, the block letters are block letters. How else would you write a block letter than that? I mean, it's almost like a typed thing. It's going to look, with two typewriters, it's going to look the same.
So you wrote one of these, but you didn't write the other one.
I wrote this one, but I did not write the cadaver one.
And can you tell me which one you didn't write?
No.
That's perfect.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Okay, Chase, what do you got?
The stretching that we're seeing at the beginning of this is artificial. He has a lot of behaviors in interviews that show false displays of comfort during high stress. in my opinion, this is a core strategy being exhibited right here, because this is the opposite of the normal way of I will display stress behaviors during relaxation and I will display false relaxation during stressful periods. So I think that when a person views one as a solution, then the opposite can also serve in a different scenario. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing.
Hey, one thing that we can't leave this scene without pointing out is, Scott, you brought it up, but let's applaud it. This is one of the best questions I've ever heard an interviewer do. I'm just trying to sort out, I forget his exact words, stops and lets the knucklehead fill in the blanks. That's beautiful questioning. Guys, if you are an interviewer, pay attention. That's the way to get people to tell you things, is stop short. Humans need to complete a thought, and they'll do it for you.
Another thing I thought was great about his questioning, he didn't say which one is yours, which one did you write. He says, which one didn't you write? Which one isn't yours? Wow, that was great. That really was great, because you can say, I think it's this one, but he can't. This way, he can't get around that. He can't pick it out. Gosh, that's great. Yeah, he was really
one of my favorite ways to baseline when you capture people and you're trying to get their baseline is you take their clothes after they've been put into a jumpsuit, after they've been stripped, and you hold the bag and you say, hey, I think I have your bag right here. Tell me what you're wearing when you're captured. You get a baseline. It's wonderful because they want their stuff back. There's no reason to lie. It's a wonderful tool.
All right. Well, there you have it. That's the best of Psychopaths. What did everybody think about that?
Yeah, well, I think always the thing to remember is you're so very unlikely to meet a violent psychopath at that level. So it can be a lot of fun to watch these characters, especially if you haven't been a victim of them yourself. And look, you're not likely to be a victim. So rest easy about that. That's all I got to say on it.
James or Greg, somebody else.
Yeah. For me, this is a great opportunity to see a psychopath not in the wild, but captured. So whatever they're doing when they're captured, they're desperate. So they're going to bleed a lot more information than they're going to do in the wild. So in the wild, it gives you a little bit of a feel for what they're like, kind of like going to the zoo. Chase.
Yeah, keep in mind, psychopaths don't make a choice to be psychopaths. So it's not like the person's made a choice to do that. And yes, we all know psychopaths. You know psychopaths without knowing that you know psychopaths. Most of them are not violent people. So watching this episode is probably something that if I was watching it, I'd have to have the lights on and maybe a shotgun. But it's a little unnecessary that, we, just like Mark said, it's highly unlikely that you will ever be the victim of a violent psychopath because they're so rare. Scott, what was your big take?
Well, keep in mind that psychopaths, most of the time, they don't even know they are psychopaths. They find out, well, I won't go through the whole, I think I went through it in this, but they find out later in life, or not later, I guess in the early to mid-20s usually. Anyway, we won't get into all that stuff there or jump down the dang nerd hole. All right. Boy, that came out wrong. I should change that. Let's leave it. All right. Well, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye now.
Sabi, sir, no,